So, apparently Larian surrendered to the mob. You ever wake up, check the news, and overnight the internet has gone from Larian is the messiah of gaming to Larian is literally Skynet? Yeah, that's where we're at. One of the only big studios that doesn't treat players and devs like used tissues tried to be honest about experimenting with AI and got dogpiled so hard they basically went, fine, no AI at all. Happy now? Let's walk through what actually happened between that first video and now, before Twitter's imagination took over. Here's the boring, factual version. The headlines quietly bury 17 paragraphs down. Larian poked around with generative AI tools on Divinity during early development. We're talking concept art experiments like rough drafts and writing helpers, not fire the humans and boot up the robots. They talked about this publicly in interviews, using fuzzy language like explore things and not replacing people, which is like catnip for outrage hunters. Once the pitchforks came out, they hopped on Reddit and clarified zero generative AI art shipping in Divinity. Zero AI in concept art, period. Now including rough drafts, mood boards and all exploratory visual work. They're yanking it entirely, so there's no discussion about the origin of the art, which is corpo speak for please stop throwing things at us. They're also dumping generative AI writing help for Divinity post Backlash, even though they originally pitched it as purely supportive. So the controversy boils down to they kicked the tires on some tools behind closed doors. The internet did what it does best and lost its collective shit, and Divinity is now fully on the no AI purity diet. That's the reality. Now, let's see what the mob did with it. Here's the cancel culture pattern in action. You've seen this movie 1,000 times. 1. A nuance thing happens. Adults are having a complicated conversation. 2. Social media hears about it third hand from someone who skimmed the headline on their phone whilst taking a shit. 3. The story mutates from Larian experimented with AI internally into Larian is firing artists and feeding their souls to Midjourney. 4. The mob demands blood, not context. Instead of, okay, where exactly are you using AI? What ships? And what protections do artists have? We get, if you even touch AI, you're dead to me. No nuance, no tools, no discussion, total purity or fuck you! It's not about real worker protections or enforceable contracts. It's about moral performance, being the loudest, most self-righteous voice in the room so you can feel like you saved the industry even if you stomp on the facts, wearing clown shoes on your way to the fucking podium. And Larian, because they actually give a damn, had to go, cool, there's no generative AI in Divinity, period. We'll eat the extra time and cost to keep your trust. That's not caught being evil. That's, we tried something, you lost your minds, we're backing off for this game because your trust actually matters to us. That's a company learning the hard way that honesty in 2026 is a self-owned. Then games media shows up like, wow, that's a nice molehill you have there. Shame if someone turned it into a fucking volcano. You see headlines like Larian backtracks on AI use for Divinity concept art and writing. Change of mind. Larian says it will not use generative AI at all in relation to Divinity concept art after fan backlash. Larian backtracks on using generative AI for Divinity's concept art. On their own, those words paint a very specific picture. Studio gets caught, studio gets shamed, studio crawls back and begs forgiveness. Now, if you actually scroll past the headline, buried further down, you'll usually find the boring part, the truth. So the facts are there, if you do the homework, but the framing backtracks. Change of mind after backlash. Walks back use following controversy. It's tuned for outrage, not understanding. Whilst technically true, it's framed like they got caught running a sweatshop made of GPUs and stolen deviant art. They compress We tested tools internally, got blasted, and removed AI from this game's visible creative work into studio you love, caught red-handed, strangling artists, forced to grovel after righteous mob intervention. Why? Because cancelled then redeemed is clickbait heroin. You rage click, you hate share, the ad revenue printer goes brrrr, and they eat. It's the content equivalent of deep frying a Twinkie. Objectively worse for you, but people can't stop shoveling it in. What these journalistic heroes conveniently bury in paragraph 17 is, no AI generated art is shipping in Divinity. No AI generated concept art is being used, period. No AI writing in the game. They're still allowed to experiment with AI in less radioactive areas like bug testing, localization tools, or making sure the physics engine doesn't launch your horse into fucking orbit. Nuance doesn't get retweets. Fury does! And games media knows it. We have watched outlet after outlet sacrifice trust and credibility for ragebait headlines and a few extra ad impressions. And people wonder why everyone's trust in media is in the goddamn shitter. This is why I'm 100% on Larian's side. Because track record matters. This is a studio that shipped Baldur's Gate 3 without battle passes, loot boxes or any of that predatory horse shit. Let you seduce half the Sword Coast and then patched in better endings because fans demanded proper emotional closure for their pixel crushes and walked away from just squeeze Baldur's Gate 3 until it bleeds DLC money to go build something completely new. And we're supposed to believe that this team woke up one morning and said, let's destroy our reputation by replacing our own A-tier artists and writers with some soulless algorithmic garbage. Come the fuck on. They actually listened without lying. The mob went feral. And instead of doing the corporate spin cycle, Larian said, okay, no gen art in Divinity. None in concept art. No AI assisted writing for this game either. We'll do it the hard way, so there's no doubt where the art comes from. Then crucially, they didn't suddenly pretend AI was the devil's technology. They were honest that they're still experimenting with AI across departments for non-art and non-writing use cases. Sven even said future games might use AI assets if they're trained on data they fully own and can justify ethically. That's not some moustache-twirling villain origin story. That's what happens when a studio actually tries to juggle player trust, team realities and emerging technology without feeding you a line of corporate horse shit. And unbelievably, they're still bitching about them! You cannot fucking win with these people! And just to be clear, before someone screeches in the comments, I do understand the other side. I said it in my first Divinity AI rant, and it's still true now. Artists are getting ripped off. Training data has been stolen. Corporals are absolutely drilling at the idea of firing whole departments and replacing them with prompt jockeys. There are very real reasons to be furious about how generative AI is being used right now. I'm not mad at people for caring about that. I'm mad at how fast some of you turn that very real fear into a blind touch AI and die crusade that obliterates nuance and punishes the wrong targets. The no AI ever anywhere crowd are acting like if you use a code assistant, you hate programmers. If you test an AI tool to summarise internal documents, you're stealing from writers. If an algorithm so much as breathes near a pixel during prototyping, you're burning the Mona Lisa. Meanwhile, these are the same crusaders whose phones are quietly running, ML upscaling their selfies and smoothing out their double chins. Email filters trained on machine learning, keeping dick pill ads out of their inbox. Algorithms feeding them whatever BG free hot take or anime girl stream, keeping them glued to their screen. Their TikTok feed, AI. Their YouTube recommendations, AI glued straight into their dopamine receptors. That suggested reply they just sent, AI. The autocorrect that saved them from typing ducking for the millionth time. That's a fucking I. But the second a dev studio says, hey, we poked around with some AI tools internally, suddenly it's torches and pitchforks o'clock. they turn into the Braveheart speech guy, except instead of face paint, it's just Cheeto dust and self-righteousness. That's not a brave stand for workers' rights. That's LARPing as a revolutionary whilst completely skipping the boring paperwork that would actually protect people. Contracts, compensation, ownership rights, and transparent data policies. And when you scream at a studio for even mentioning AI, you do not stop AI. You just teach every other dev to shut the fuck up and lie about it. So did cancel culture win this round? Sort of. In the same way a toddler wins by screaming until you just give them the cookies. Technically effective. But you're not exactly proud of the process. The mob threw a collective shit fit, the press turned it into a three-ring circus complete with clickbait cotton candy, and Larian yanked generative AI out of the rough draft phase and writing like it was a live grenade just to get everyone to shut the fuck up. Now the outrage crowd gets to do a victory lap. See, if we shout hard enough, we can force studios to heal. Power to the people! But the actual take home for everyone else in the industry is, don't be transparent, don't experiment in public, and don't try to have a grown-up conversation about new tools. You either swear blind you'll never touch AI whilst quietly doing whatever you want behind closed doors and deploy the PR flamethrowers if anyone finds out, or get turned into the main character of Twitter for a couple of weeks. That's not a win for ethics, that's a win for cowardice and PR departments. But the funny thing, Larian still walks out of this looking like the only adults in the room. They took the hit, they protected player trust, they kept it real about still exploring tech in safer controlled ways. Meanwhile, the outrage machine proved it cares more about performing purity than about the truth. In a shocking development that has rocked the gaming industry, leaked footage allegedly shows Larian CEO Sven Ving maniacally cackling whilst frantically typing Make Baldur's Gate, but free, into what insiders describe as the world's most evil ChatGPT prompt. Sources close to the situation report that the studio has been secretly firing artists via Zoom calls, while replacing them with what one anonymous whistleblower called a bunch of neural networks running on Belgian waffles and corporate greed. When reached for comment, a Larian spokesperson allegedly responded with only a robotic beep boop, boop boop beep, creative.exe has stopped working, before the line went dead. The gaming community is in an uproar, with thousands demanding immediate cancellation and calls for Ving to face public execution. The canyon between this and the truth is where cancel culture sets up camp, in that cosy little spot where fanfiction trumps facts and internet points beats actual journalism. And somehow, out of this mess, Larian ends up looking better. They proved they'll sacrifice efficiency on the altar of player trust. They showed they're happy to do things the expensive, slow, handcrafted by actual humans way, when the community gives a damn. And they kept it real about testing tech in other departments instead of LARPing as some tech-phobic monastery. Meanwhile, the Pitchfork Brigade proved they'd rather carpet bomb any studio brave enough to be transparent than do the actual boring work of pushing for real AI ethics policies with teeth. If that's winning, I'd hate to see what losing looks like. Call that a win if you want, but from here, it looks more like shooting yourself in the foot and declaring victory because you hit something. This Larian mess is just one tiny example of a bigger problem. We've spent years living under this online culture where the worst thing you can do is say the wrong sentence, in the wrong tone, to the wrong Twitter priesthood. You can see it everywhere. Comedian tells a spicy joke. Clips get ripped out of context and suddenly there's a week-long tribunal over whether they're redeemable as a human being. Everyone involved learns the same lesson: do not experiment in public. A random employee uses the wrong word in a Slack screenshot. It hits Reddit. And now a private workplace fuck-up turns into worldwide moral theatre. HR isn't fixing anything. They're doing damage control for the brand. A small indie dev phrases something clumsily in a patch note, gets dogpiled, and instead of, hey, can you clarify what you meant? It jumps straight to, boycott this game, they're monsters. Next update, sanitised, no personality, corporate. So people stop talking normally. They self-censor. They bottle up resentment, They speak in rehearsed PR instead of honest sentences because they've watched what happened to the last honest idiot, and then one day they go into a voting booth and go, you know what, I hate this other lot, but at least they're not lecturing me about dumb shit. That's how you end up with people voting for parties they don't even like, out of spite for the scolding glass. Your crusade just got an oppression rebrand. The ballot becomes a giant middle finger to everyone who spent the last decade policing their every opinion. Sound fucking familiar? I hope so. And before you start, I'm not phobic of anyone, except maybe my wife. I just think the hyper-moral, always online outrage machine has made life unbearable for a lot of normal people. People who don't live on Twitter, who don't know the constantly updating rulebook, and who are tired of being told they're monsters because they lag behind the discourse. The Larian thing is a perfect example. They told the truth, tried a tool, corrected course, and still got treated like cartoon villains. If that's how we treat the rare studio that experiments in the open and actually listens, do not be surprised when everyone else decides the safest option is to lie and keep you in the dark. This has been a banter rant by Tone. If you've somehow made it all the way to the end of this without rage closing the tab or composing a 40-page tweet thread about how I'm personally killing artists, nice! You are not the audience I was talking about. I'm not going to sit here and beg you to smash any buttons or ring any bells. If this kind of unfiltered rant is your thing, you already know exactly what to do on this platform. If it isn't, perfect. Go watch a 90-minute video essay about how your game choice is secretly upholding the patriarchy and leave the rest of us in fucking peace. The algorithm can decide whether it wants more of this. I'm just here to talk like a normal fucking person. Tone,